South African advocate Thembeka Nkukaitubi, representing the family of former Zambian President Edgar Lungu, delivered a powerful rebuke to the Zambian government's legal stance during a high-profile hearing at the Constitutional Court in Johannesburg. The case centers on the controversial decision by the Zambian government to repatriate Lungu's remains for burial, a move contested by his widow and children who insist on laying him to rest in South Africa, where he spent his final days. In a courtroom charged with emotion and constitutional tension, Nkukaitubi challenged the government's reasoning, declaring, "We can't accept such reasoning. That's why we have a constitution," a statement that has since resonated across legal and political circles in both Zambia and South Africa. The Zambian government's legal team, which presented its arguments in a brief 5-minute submission, maintained that the state holds sovereign authority over the burial of a former head of state. However, Nkukaitubi dismissed this position as legally unsound and ethically troubling, arguing that it undermines the rights of the deceased's immediate family and sets a dangerous precedent for state interference in personal and cultural matters. His critique was not merely rhetorical, it was grounded in constitutional principles that protect individual dignity, family autonomy, and the right to mourn according to personal convictions. At the heart of the dispute lies a complex intersection of law, tradition, and political symbolism. Lungu's family contends that his final wishes were to be buried in South Africa, where he had sought medical treatment and spiritual solace. The Zambian government, on the other hand, insists that his legacy belongs to the nation and that his burial should reflect his status as a former president. This clash has ignited a broader debate about the role of the state in posthumous decisions and the extent to which constitutional rights extend beyond death. Nkukaitubi's intervention was not only a defense of the Lungu family's wishes, but also a broader affirmation of constitutionalism in southern Africa. By invoking the Constitution as a safeguard against arbitrary state power, he positioned the judiciary as a bulwark of democratic values and human dignity. His argument emphasized that the Constitution is not a ceremonial document, but a living framework that must guide decisions in moments of moral and legal complexity. In doing so, he challenged the notion that political status should override personal agency, especially in matters as intimate as burial. The case has drawn attention from legal scholars, human rights advocates, and political commentators who see it as a litmus test for the independence of the judiciary and the resilience of constitutional norms in the region. It raises critical questions about the balance between state interests and individual rights, particularly in contexts where national identity and personal legacy collide. For many observers, the outcome will signal whether Southern African courts are willing to uphold the primacy of the Constitution even when confronted with politically sensitive cases. Moreover, the dispute touches on deeper cultural and historical currents. In many African societies, burial is not merely a logistical matter, but a profound ritual imbued with ancestral significance. The location of a grave can symbolize belonging, honor, and continuity. By asserting control over Lungu's burial, the Zambian government is not only making a political statement, but also engaging in a symbolic act of national reclamation. Nkukaitubi's challenge, therefore, is also a defense of cultural pluralism and the right of families to interpret tradition on their own terms. As the court deliberates, the stakes remain high. A ruling in favor of the government could embolden future administrations to assert control over personal matters under the guise of national interest. Conversely, a decision that upholds the family's wishes would reinforce the principle that constitutional rights are not suspended by death, and that the dignity of the individual must be preserved even in their final journey. In either case, the judgment will shape the contours of constitutional jurisprudence in Zambia and beyond. Nkukaitubi's words, "We can't accept such reasoning," have become a rallying cry for those who believe in the transformative power of constitutional law. They remind us that legal reasoning must be anchored in justice, empathy, and respect for human dignity. In a region where democratic institutions are often tested by political pressures, this case offers a moment of reflection and reaffirmation. It is a reminder that the Constitution exists not to serve the powerful, but to protect the vulnerable, and that its authority must be asserted precisely when it is most inconvenient to those in power.